There's no single reason why offenders abuse drugs. Valerie Wong, who's a counsellor at Sana, says for some, drugs give them a false sense of security. Often, addicts also turn to them when they feel stressed or lonely. There are also others who are drawn to drugs out of peer pressure to appear cool.
They are absolutely unaware of how addictive the psychological effects of these drugs. And then they think, this is only self-harm and I'm not doing anything to anybody else, not harming others. But very soon, they will be chasing after this very same first high, but never to achieve the same experience. So the doses get larger and then they turn to stronger narcotics.
To address the problem, Ms. Wong says the Case Management Framework Program has been extremely useful in helping former drug addicts turn over a new leaf. She points out that those who stay on will usually land jobs in about 6 months after their release.
Well, we always have our recovering addicts and ex-clients coming back to help us and coming back to share with recovering addicts. So, but the thing is, one important aspect to understand about addiction is that recovery is a lifetime. It's hard to measure success. Part of recovery is actually sometimes to relapse a couple of times before they understand what are their triggers, what caused them to go back to drugs, and find the permanent or long-term motivation for them to quit.
As part of the recovery process, Sana's counsellors will contact its clients once every 2 weeks for face-to-face sessions. There'll also be at least 3 counselling sessions in 6 months. Most of the participants in these programs are combating their addiction to heroin.
These drug addicts under the CMF program are often repeated offenders, and they belong to the low-income group. So one straw of heroin could be shared among a few drug abusers or used in a few doses. So it is actually more economical for them to use heroin as compared to taking one ecstasy pill for the same price.
One small straw of heroin that can be shared among several addicts costs between $30 and $50, adds Ms. Wong. A well-known and well-documented fact is that many drug addicts find it extremely difficult to kick the habit.
All over the world, drug addicts go through tough journeys in their recovery because most drugs of abuse have common effects, either directly or indirectly, on the reward system in the brain. So activation of this system appears to be a common element in all addictive substances, same for alcohol, gambling, and acute drug use modify this brain functioning, and the pervasive changes can persist for a long time, even after an individual stops taking the drug. And some other factors could be poor coping skills, because these recovering addicts have been using substances to cope with those negative emotions. And in time, there are also lack of the family social support network, and as well as the peer pressure. They're stuck in the same group of peers that have triggered them to want to try drugs from the beginning.
Ms. Wong says going cold turkey is the first step in addressing drug addiction.
Commonly for heroin, people could take up to 7 days to 21 days just to get the withdrawals out. For Subutex, I've heard of cases where it goes up to 3 months. Ooh. So they suffer the aches, the vomiting for up to 3 months. The addict needs immediate support from the family and the social network, and it must come together with long-term counselling to sustain that recovery.
She says there are also some drug addicts who want to kick the habit but are afraid to seek help. That's because they assume that they'll be arrested by officers from the Central Narcotics Bureau should they do so. Ms. Wong adds they have nothing to fear and they should instead seek treatment as soon as possible.
Well, there are private hospitals that provide treatment, but they come with a high cost. So for cheaper alternatives, they can also go to polyclinics to attain referral letters to IMH camp. Halfway houses accept walk-in clients, but on the condition that clients have to commit to their programs for a duration of 6 to 18 months. But all these clients who walk in will be screened for any pending cases that they might have. Lastly, anyone who is seeking help for themselves or their family members can always dial our Sana helpline.
She also gives assurance that all cases will be kept purely confidential. Lim Po Kui, Sana's executive director, stresses that those who seek help from it will not be handed over to the authorities.
They can depend on us totally, rely on us totally, that we will not alert CNB to be here to pick them up when they're coming in. We have to observe that rule. If we don't observe that rule, Sana's reputation as a VWO will be completely shattered. Nobody will turn to Sana then for assistance when they need that assistance.
Mr. Lim believes that addicts do not usually turn to drugs by choice. They are instead victims of circumstance.
Especially if that person is a young person, a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, he can't be making the right decision. It could be environment. Environment could be geographical, could be local environment, could be family environment. He did not ask to be born into such an environment. We feel very strongly about such cases that they need the help. As a drug addict, did not ask to be born into the sort of situation in which he got into.
That's why SANA's reaching out to students in schools to educate them about the dangers of drugs before it's too late, says Mr. Lim. In the case of drug addiction, it is without doubt that prevention is better than cure. I'm Shaffiq Alkhatib for 93 Live.